Hey YouTube, this is PrimetimePokemon. In this video, I'll be sharing some more tips for Pokemon card collecting. Specifically, in this video, I'll be discussing graded Pokemon cards. What are graded Pokemon cards, how much these cards are worth, and then if it's worth it to get your Pokemon cards graded. If you'd like any more additional information on graded Pokemon cards or just some general information for Pokemon card collecting, make sure to check out my book, Pokemon Cards, the Unofficial Ultimate Collector's Guide. I'll link to this book in the description of this video. So when it comes to graded Pokemon cards, all it means to have a graded Pokemon card is you have a card in a tamper-proof case that has the condition or the grade of the card stated on that case. Now for Pokemon card grading, there are two companies, PSA and BGS. Any other company out there, really it isn't worth it to get your cards graded by. These two companies are the major two companies, and these two companies do a very good job grading your cards and give you the most bang for your buck when getting Pokemon cards graded. Later in this video, I'll go in detail between the two companies and show close-ups of the cards that I just showed. Now the process for getting a graded Pokemon card does not vary between companies. Essentially, you want to gather the card or cards you'd like to get graded, send them in a package to one of these companies, paying a fee for each card that you'd like to get graded. Once the package arrives at the company, a certified card grader then takes a look at each and every one of the cards sent along. First, they authenticate the card, making sure it's not fake, and then second, they give the card a specific grade. The best grade that you can get is a Gem Mint 10. And the grading system between these two companies do vary a little bit, and I can discuss that in a few minutes in this video. But once each card is graded, they're put in a tamper-proof case and then sent back to the original owner. Now a tip for collecting cards in general. For example, I was trying to complete the Gold Star collection. There are 27 different Gold Star cards out there. You may find these cards hard to find, like I'll go on eBay and I won't see many of them. What I try to do is I try and find PSA 7 graded cards and buy those cards. Number one, they're a little bit cheaper, and number two, as far as a collector goes, they're going to be in good enough condition, they're almost near mint in my mind, that you're getting a great deal by buying a PSA 7 card. Now, of course, the different grades on a card can increase the value of the card. I'll get to that in a few minutes as well. But it is definitely worth it to get your cards graded, especially if you have ultra rares or secret rares. I myself have sent my cards to get graded once. I sent along a bunch of unlimited print base set holos and then first edition print holos of Team Rocket and Fossil cards. For the most part, it's never worth to get holo cards graded unless they are first edition, or in this case base set. I opened up a base set booster box and sent every single holo that I pulled directly to PSA. Now, just because you pull a card from a pack does not mean you're going to get a 10 grade. There are very specific guidelines for what a 10 grade looks like. But now I can get into the differences between PSA and BGS and give you a good close-up of the cards as well as values of these types of cards. Okay, so here's a look at both of the graded cards up close. On the left is the PSA graded card, and on the right is the BGS. And I'll go into detail between the two different companies in a moment here, but here's just a comparison of the two different types of graded cards. As you can see, the BGS case is a little bit thicker and the card is actually in a sleeve inside the case. But here's a look at the back as well. Here's a look at the Pokemon card that's graded by PSA. So PSA, Professional Sports Authenticator, is by a large margin the most popular grading company for Pokemon cards. PSA uses a 1 through 10 grading system, with 10 being the best grade. After grading, each card is placed in its own tamper-evident case. A label within the case displays the card's pertinent information, the card's grade, and unique certification number. The hard cases the cards are stored in provide protection from pressure and most damage, and will allow the card to remain secure from further wear. Now there is a fee associated, like I mentioned, with getting a Pokemon card graded. For the most part, it's somewhere between about $15 and $20. If you try and send multiple cards in to get graded, it can sometimes reduce the fee per card. There's also special memberships that you can purchase to decrease the fee per card. Now with PSA, if a card that you're sending in to get graded has a declared value of $500 or more, the fee jumps up to about $45 per card. But again, the more valuable a card is before it's graded, the more valuable it will be after grading. So here's a look at a PSA 10 graded card. Now this is the best possible grade that PSA issues. Now their definition of a Gem Mint 10 card is as followed. A PSA Gem Mint 10 card is a virtually perfect card. Attributes include 4 perfectly rounded corners, sharp focus, and full original gloss. The card must be free of staining of any kind, but an allowance may be made for a slight printing imperfection if it doesn't impair the overall appeal of the card. The image must be centered on the card within a tolerance of 55-45 to 60-40% on the front and 75-25% on the reverse. But here's a look at the card, and I pulled this card straight from a pack. Like I mentioned, even if you do pull a card straight from a pack, you're not guaranteed a 10 grade. But this is the definition of a 10 grade for PSA. So here's a better view of the Pokemon card graded by BGS, or Beckett Grading Services. So BGS is the second most popular grading company for Pokemon cards. BGS uses a 1 through 10 grading system with descending increments of 1/2 point. After grading, each card is placed in its own attractive, sturdy, and stackable case, which is protected from tampering. BGS graded cards also place the card in a sleeve before encapsulation, protecting the card from internal movement. A label within the case displays the card's pertinent information, the card's grade, Beckett serial number, and an exclusive report card indicating the factors determining the final grade: centering, corners, edges, and surface. The label within the case is color-coded, making the grade of the card easily identifiable. Now for each card for BGS, it's a little bit cheaper than PSA, about $15 per card, and just like PSA, if you send cards in bulk, you're going to save per card. Now like I mentioned, for sports cards, BGS is the preferred service, and I do like that the card is not only preserved in a sleeve inside the holder, but then the actual information, the centering, edges, corners, and surface are all given grades at the top of the card. Now the final grade is not actually an average of those 4 numbers. There's actually an algorithm that they input these numbers in to determine the final grade. And one thing to note with the BGS graded cards, you can get 1/2 point increments for grading. So as you can see here, 9.5, 9.5, 8.5, 9.5. This could be a 9.5 up here as well, where PSA only has whole number grades. Now there isn't really any definitions out there for what determines the different grades for centering, edging, corner, surface, etc. But just overall, this number is the final grade. And before I get into values of these cards, you may see a card that's graded by BCCG. Now this is a subsidiary of Beckett. Now these cards are worth very little. And if you have a card like this, where this is a 10 mint or better, this card's worth only a few dollars. And this was mainly a promotional event where you could easily send in cards to get graded for very cheap. The grading scale for these cards was not very detailed, and it was very easy to get a 10 grade. So do not think if you have graded cards by BCCG or any other company that's not PSA or BGS, they're really not going to be worth much, because the grading company is not an established company and really is not reputable. So now value-wise of these cards, and I can talk about specific prices here, but overall, PSA cards are usually worth about 20 to 30% more than a BGS graded card with an identical grade. Now I've also heard that BGS is tougher grading-wise, so again, the tide could swing to BGS cards being more popular for Pokemon, but I would highly doubt it, just because there's a lot more PSA graded cards out there. So as far as values go, Gem Mint grade 10 Pokemon cards can be worth up to 10 times as much as that card not graded. There is a big drop-off in price between grade 10 and grade 9 cards. Between 9 and 7, there's a gradual decline, with any graded card, a 7 grade or lower, usually worth around the same amount or less than that card not graded. Cards from older sets are certainly worth more graded than newer cards, since newer cards' prices are based on demand in the TCG. Now, something to note with newer cards, I would say since the black and white series of sets, the quality of Pokemon cards have decreased quite a bit, so it is very tough to get graded 10 Pokemon cards, let's say out of Sun and Moon series sets. So if you do have a graded Pokemon card from a newer set, that is a PSA 10 or a BGS 10, it can be worth quite a bit as well. Now, as far as values go, let's just take a look at this base set Charizard. This card, not graded, in mint condition, let's say pulled straight from a pack, is worth around $50. If you get the card graded, and it is a PSA 10, it's worth at least $700. BGS is worth about $550. Now, these are just ranges and estimates, of course. A card is only worth as much as someone will pay for it, and just because you see a card listed, for example, on eBay for a certain amount doesn't mean that that card is actually worth that amount. So these just are price ranges again, and prices change over time. The PSA 9, like the card here, is worth about $160 for a Charizard base set holo. BGS 9 is worth about $120. PSA 8 is worth about $90. BGS 8 is worth about $65, and then PSA 7 is worth about $60, and BGS 7 is worth around $50. So there's a good price range there. Before you send your cards in to get graded, you want to carefully look your cards over to think if you're going to get a 10 grade or not. Now, I believe on both sites, when you send the cards in, you can actually indicate whether you want cards that are going to receive something like a 7 or an 8 grade. If you want those encapsulated or not, they can just return those cards back to you saying they didn't get the necessary grade. So as far as I know, when the cards are graded, the professionals do not use any type of gloves or anything like that, so it's perfectly acceptable. If you do have your fingerprints on the card, of course you're going to want to try and avoid the holofoil pattern or any shiny parts of a card. It's also possible that a card like this Charizard, where it did get a PSA 9 grade, if you think it deserved a 10, you can break open this case and then resend it, and you may get a different grade. Of course, grading Pokemon cards isn't a perfect science. It really is a person's opinion, so grades may differ even if you send the same card in multiple times. So I think that's really it for graded Pokemon cards, what they are, how much these cards are worth, and if it's worth getting your Pokemon cards graded. Like I said, if you can afford the fees, it is a very good idea to get your cards graded. But again, make sure they are in very good shape before you send them in, and really think about the best cards to send in to get graded. I would say the only time you want to get cards like commons or uncommons, that type of thing, graded is if you're trying to complete an entire set and get the entire set graded. It's also possible to send in things like booster packs and have those graded as well. So there you have it. Thanks everyone for watching. As always, before you go, check out all the links in the description of this video, including links to my blog, Facebook, and Twitter pages, and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.